Sister, I think we did it again.
Oh, you've got to be kidding me. I'm sorry, Olivia, I'm sorry.
Colonist.
Mr. Henry, ma'am, is downstairs with Colonel Pickering.
Well, chew them up.
You're using the telephone, ma'am. Telephoning the police, I think.
What?
Mr. Henry is in a state, ma'am. I thought I'd better tell you.
If you had told me that Mr. Henry was not in a state, it would have been more surprising. Tell them to come up when they finished with the police. I suppose he's lost something.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, and go upstairs and tell Miss Doolittle that Mr. Henry and the Colonel are here. Ask her not to come down till I send for her.
Yes, ma'am.
Look here, Mother. Here's a confounded thing.
Yes, dear, good morning. What is it?
Eliza's bolted.
You must have frightened her.
Frightened her? Nonsense. She was left last night, as usual, snapped the lights. And instead of going to bed, she went right off. She didn't even sleep in her bed. And when she came back at 6 o'clock this morning to get her things, and that fool Mrs. Pierce let her in. What am I to do?
Do without, I'm afraid, Henry. The girl has a perfect right to leave if she chooses.
But I can't. I don't know where my things are, and I can't remember my appointments.
Good morning, Mrs. Higgins. Has Henry told you?
Did you talk to that inspector yet? Did you offer the reward?
You don't mean to say you have set the police after Eliza?
Of course we have. What else are they for?
That inspector made a lot of difficulties. I really think he suspected us of some improper purpose.
Well, of course he did. What right have you to go to the police and give the girl's name as if she were a thief or a lost umbrella or something? Really?
But we want to find her.
Yes, we couldn't let her go like that. You know that, Mrs. Higgins. What are we to do?
You have no more sense, either of you, than
Mr. Henry, a gentleman wants to see you very particular. He's been sent on from Wimpole Street.
I can't see anyone right now. Who is it?
A Mr. Doolittle, sir?
Doolittle? Do you mean the dustman?
Dustman? Oh, no, sir. A gentleman.
Some relative of hers we know nothing about. Send him up.
Yes, sir.
A genteel relative. Hopefully we hear something.
Do you know any of her people?
Only her father, the fellow we told you about.
Mr. Doolittle?
You've done this to me! Look at this! Look at what you've done!
Done what?
Look at this hat! Look at this coat! Look at it!
Has Eliza been buying you clothes?
Eliza? Why would she be buying me clothes?
Good morning, Mr. Doolittle. Won't you sit down?
Morning, ma'am. Beg your pardon. I am that full of what has happened to me that I can't think of anything else.
But what has happened to you?
Well, I shouldn't have mind if it only happened to myself. Then nobody's to blame but Providence, as you might say. But no, this is something you've done to me, Henry Higgins. Yes, you.
Have you found Eliza?
Have you lost her?
Yes.
No, you have all the luck you have. But don't you worry. She'll be on my doorstep by this after what you've done to me.
But what has my son done to you, Mr. Doolittle?
Tied me up and handed me over to middle-class morality.
You're raving. You're drunk. You're mad. I gave you £5. After that, I saw you twice, half a crown an hour. I haven't seen you since.
Oh, drunk am I. Mad am I. Well, did you or did you not write a letter to an old blighter in America who was trying to found more reform societies and wanted you to make a universal language for him?
It's what he wasn't, fella. He's dead.
Yes, he's dead. And I'm done for! Now, did you or did you not, in your letter, say to him that the most original moralist, to the best of your knowledge, in England at the present time, was one Alfred P. Doolittle, a common dustman?
Oh. I remember making some silly joke of that sort after your last visit.
Bah! You may well call it a silly joke, you will, but it put the lid on me, sure enough. Gave them the chance to show that Americans ain't like us, that they recognise and support merit in no matter what class. Them words are his blooming will, in which thanks to you, Henry Higgins, he leaves me 3,000 a year out of his pre-digested cheese trust, on condition that I speak up to 6 times a year for his Moral Reform Society.
Does he, by George? What a luck.
Well, it's the same thing for you, Doolittle. They won't ask you twice.
It ain't the lecturing I mind. I'll lecture him blue in the face, I will, and not turn a hair. It's making a gentleman of me I object to. Who asked him to make me a gentleman? I was happy. I was free. I touched pretty much everybody for money when I needed it. Same as I touched you, Henry Higgins. Now I've got people touching me for money. It's good for you, says my solicitors. Is it, says I? You mean it's good for you? Well, I had a solicitor once, when they found a pram in the dust cart. He got me off the charges, and me shut of him, and him shut of me, as fast as he could. Same with the hospitals. Used to shove me out the door before I could walk on my own 2 legs. And now they find out I'm not healthy unless they check me twice a day. At home, I'm not allowed to do a hand's turn for myself. Someone else must do it and then touch me for the tip. You worry about Eliza? Don't you worry. She'll be on my doorstep by this, she that could support herself easily enough by selling flowers. And the next one to touch me will be you, Henry Higgins. Yes, you. You'll have to teach me to speak proper middle class instead of English. And that's what you've done it for.
But, my dear Mr. Doolittle, you need not suffer all this if you are really in earnest. Nobody can force you to accept this bequest. You can repudiate it. Isn't that so, Colonel Pickering?
I believe so, yes.
That's the tragedy of it, ma'am. I'm intimidated. We're intimidated. What do I have if I say chuck it? I have to dye my hair already to keep my job as a dustman. Now, if I had been one of the deserving poor and put by a bit by bit, I very well might say chuck it. But then why should I? Because the deserving poor might as well be millionaires for all the happiness they ever have. No, I was one of the undeserving poor, with nothing between me and the pauper's uniform except this here blasted 3,000 a year. Excuse the expression, ma'am. You'd use it yourself if you had my provocation. They've got you every way they turn. It's either the skilly of the workhouse or the charbonnaise of the middle class. And I haven't the now for the workhouse. Intimidated, broke, brought up. Happier men than I shall call for my dust and touch me for their tip. And I'll have to look on and envy them, helpless. That is what your son has brought me to.
Well, I'm very glad you are not going to do anything foolish, Mr. Doolittle, for this solves the problem of Eliza's future. You can provide for her now.
Yes, I'm expected to provide for everybody out of 3,000 a year now.
He can't provide for her. He shan't provide for her. I paid for her, and she doesn't belong to you. Either you're an honest man or a rogue.
A little of both, Governor. Like the rest of us, a little of both.
Well, you took the money for her, and you can't take her too.
Henry, don't be absurd. If you want to know where Eliza is, she is upstairs.
Upstairs? But I'll very soon fetch her downstairs.
Be quiet, Henry. Sit down.
But I...
Sit down, dear, and listen to me.
Very well, very well. But you might have told me this a half an hour ago.
Eliza came to me this morning. She told me of the brutal way you two treated her.
My dear Mrs. Higgins, she's been telling you stories. We never treated her brutally, and we hardly said a word to her. We parted on particularly good terms. Higgins, did you bully her after I went to bed?
Just the opposite. She did my sympathize with me. She behaved in the most outrageous way, and I didn't give her the slightest provocation. I walked in the room and bang, Syllabus came right in my face, and she used the most outrageous language.
But why? What did we do to her?
I think I know pretty well what you did. The girl is naturally rather affectionate, I think. Isn't she, Mr. Doolittle?
Very tender-hearted man. Takes after me.
Just so. She had become attached to you both. She worked very hard for you, Henry. I don't think you quite realize what anything in the nature of brain work means to a girl of her class. Well, it seems that when the great day of trial came and she did this wonderful thing for you without making a single mistake, you two sat there, never said a word to her, but talked together of how glad you were that it was all over and how you had been bold with the whole thing. And then you were surprised because she threw your slippers at you. I should have thrown the fire irons at you.
All we said was that we were tired and wanted to go to bed, didn't we, Pick?
That was all.
Quite sure.
Absolutely, really, that was all.
You didn't thank her, or pet her, or admire her, or tell her how splendid she'd been.
But she knew all that. But we didn't make lectures at her, if that's what you mean.
Perhaps we were a little inconsiderate. Was she very angry?
Well, I'm afraid she won't go back to Wimpole Street, especially now that Mr. Doolittle is able to keep up the position you have thrust on her. But she says she is quite willing to meet you on friendly terms and to let bygones be bygones.
Is she, by George? Ho!
If you promise to behave yourself, Henry, I'll ask her to come down. If not, go home, for you have taken up quite enough of my time.
Very well. Pick, behave yourself. Let's put on our best Sunday manners for this creature we pulled out of the mud.
Now, Henry Higgins, have some consideration for my middle-class feelings.
Remember your promise, Henry. Mr. Doolittle, would you be so good as to step out on the balcony for a moment? I don't want Eliza to have the shock of your news until she has made it up with these two gentlemen. Would you mind?
Not at all, ma'am. Anything to help old Henry here keep out of my hands.
Ask Miss Doolittle to come down, please.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, Henry, be good.
I am behaving myself perfectly.
He's doing his best, Mrs. Higgins.
Henry, dearest, you don't look at all nice in that attitude.
I wasn't trying to look nice, Mother.
It doesn't matter, dear. I only wanted to make you speak.
Why?
Because you can't speak and whistle at the same time.
Where the devil is this girl? Are we to wait here all day?
How do you do, Professor Higgins? Are you quite well?
Am I?
But of course you are. You were never ill. So glad to see you again, Colonel Pickering. Quite chilly this morning, isn't it?
Don't you dare try this game on me. I taught it to you. Besides, it doesn't take me in. Now, get up and let's go home, and don't be a fool.
Very nicely put indeed, Henry. No woman could resist such an invitation.
Let it speak for herself, Mother. You'll very soon see that there is not a word I have not put in her mouth, or a thought I have not put in her head. I have created this creature out of the curb of Covent Garden, and now she pretends to play the fine lady with me.
Yes, dear, but you'll sit down, won't you?
Will you drop me altogether now that the experiment's over, Colonel Pickering?
No, don't think of it as an experiment. Shocks me somehow.
Oh, I'm only a squashed cabbage leaf.
No.
But I owed so much to you that I should be very unhappy if you forgot me.
It's very kind of you to say so, Miss Stewart.
It's not because you paid for my dresses. I know you were generous to everyone with money, but it was from you that I learned really nice manners. You see, it was so very difficult for me with the example of Professor Higgins always before me. I was brought up to be just like him, unable to control myself, using bad language at the slightest provocation. And I should never have known that true ladies and gentlemen didn't behave that way if you hadn't been there.
Well,
Don't mind him, he doesn't mean it.
Oh, I didn't mean it either. When I was a flower girl. But you see, I did it. And that's what makes the difference, after all.
Well, no doubt, but he taught you how to speak, and I could have done that.
Of course, that's his profession.
damnation.
It was just like learning to dance in the fashionable way. There was nothing more than that in it. But do you know what began my real education?
What?
Your calling me Miss Doolittle that day when I first came to Winter Street. That was the beginning of self-respect for me. And there were 100 little things that you never noticed because they came naturally to you. Things like standing up and taking off your hat and opening doors.
That was nothing.
Yes. Things that showed you thought and felt about me as if I was something better than a scullery maid. Though, of course, I know you'd behave the same to a scullery maid if she'd been let into the drawing room. And you never took off your boots in the dining room when